Hey guys, just wanted to do a quick little write-up on how to install a boost gauge on the second generation Cruze. If you're interested in doing something like this to your car, stick around and I'll do my best to walk you through it. You don't need anything too fancy to get this gauge in. You need a trim panel remover, soldering iron, fuse tap kit, hose clamps, heat shrink tubing, a socket set, and some Allen keys. As far as parts go, you're obviously going to need your boost gauge. You're going to need a gauge pod. And in my case, I got the Bad News Racing throttle body spacer and some NPT barb fittings. I'll link to everything in the description below. After popping the hood, the first thing that you'll notice is that getting to these throttle body bolts is extremely difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and take off the engine cover so we can get some better access to them. After taking the engine cover off, you're going to want to very carefully remove the clip off of the charge pipe. I've circled it here. So this is what the clip for the charge pipe should look like. You're gonna want to be very careful in removing this. When I took mine off, it went flying. There's also supposed to be two black little pieces on either side of this clip. Someone sent me a picture of what one side is supposed to look like. Just make sure you do not lose them. I have a solution for you guys if you did lose it like I did. So without those two plastic clips on that charge pipe, it allegedly will completely just blow off while you're driving and making boost. So to combat it from falling off, I literally just took two 1.5-inch hose clamps, merged them together, and just put it around the charge pipe. To just get a little more room to get to the throttle body bolts, I found it much easier to unbolt this support on the very side that holds up the charge pipe. I also wanted to say, if you have an electric ratchet, it will help you so much. It is so hard to get to those bolts. You do not have any wiggle room for a socket wrench. Alright, so this is what it looks like with the Bad News Racing throttle body spacer in. I highly recommend that you put your barb fitting and the plug-in before installing it. So next up is the vacuum hose. You're going to want to find a drill bit that's just about the same size as your hose, and you're going to drill a hole where the clutch would be for the manual cars. Here's just a little picture of what I ended up doing with my car. I can't get a good shot of where exactly the boost line comes in from the cabin, but all that I can tell you is that it'll come out right underneath the coolant res and the ABS. Somewhere in there it'll come out. And for me, some people move this out of the way. I just kind of pushed it on back through until I was able to feed it onto the spacer. So in order to continue to get your vacuum line to where it needs to be, you're gonna have to take off some of these trim panels on the side, and you're gonna want to take off the top vent one. You're also going to need to drill a hole, not too big, just enough to get the vacuum line through and the electrical. I drilled two separate holes because I didn't feel like running back and grabbing a bigger drill bit. But either way, it works as long as you get your vacuum and your electric lines run through. Alright, so at this point, if your gauge is purely mechanical and has no lights, you are finished. But if your gauge does have lights, we're gonna start off by disconnecting the battery. I find it easiest to reach from the back seat on the passenger side. It's just much easier to reach than trying to crawl through the trunk. Alright, next up we got a couple trim panels to remove. This is going to be a bolt right next to the gas pedal. It's going to be a 7mm, a couple clips. It's a pretty long trim panel, so put the seat all the way back. Next would be removing the cover for the fuse box, which would be right underneath the climate controls. I'm going to give it a good tug. It's pretty stuck on there. The fuse that I tapped into is F30, which is the lights for the Prindle, as I'm calling it, because I watched The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody as a kid. You're also going to want to make sure to put 2 fuses in there. This is my first time wiring something, so, I didn't do that. But that's why I'm warning you guys to do it. Once you get that wire in, you're going to crimp it down, whatever. You're going to make sure it's long enough to run it behind and kind of over the airbag that's underneath the steering wheel. So, according to the boost gauge manual, it tells you to wire these 2 different wires separately. I didn't do that. I just kind of put them together, put some heat shrink on it, and called it a day. There's another wire. It's orange. You can see it tucked in the back there. That's if you want to have it auto dim with your headlights. Personally, I'd honestly just cut that white wire down a little more and just put everything together. Just leave the orange one on a switch, so you can turn it on and off as you want. Because sometimes, maybe you don't want it dimmed. After that, just gotta pack everything nice and neat. Well, as neat as you can make it, behind that side trim panel. And, of course, you gotta run your ground. How could I forget? The ground is... The grounding point that I chose is this bolt. You just back it out a little bit, tuck it behind the washer, tighten it back down, and you'll be perfectly fine. And after that, you should have a boost gauge that looks a little like this. Alright guys, well, this is the end of the video. Just some seagulls flying around. I hope you found some use in this, and here's a little teaser for what might be coming up next.